Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are just about at 8:30. We're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order here. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Brian, and I am an alcoholic.
Hey, Brian.
Welcome home, everyone. What do we got? We got hoodies available for sale. They're on display here. If you're interested in purchasing one of those, you can see me, see any home group member after the meeting. This group is all about service. We do a running commitment. It's an H&I commitment. It's up in Quakertown. It's every Sunday night at 7 o'clock. If you'd be interested in going up there, sharing a couple of minutes of your time, it's an institution. We go in there. We try to bring a message of hope and recovery in there. So if you'd be interested in coming up there, you can see me, see Ron, see any home group member after the meeting if you'd like details on that. And with that, I'm going to bring up the world's greatest chairperson. Please help me give a warm welcome to Nick. That's all that.
Thank you. Okay, good evening. Welcome home, everyone. And welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Nick, and I'm an alcoholic. And this is a one-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. The food and fellowship starts at 8 o'clock, followed by our speaker at 8:30. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. to 7:30 right here. Please come early and join us. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God, reliance, and service to others through the practice and teaching of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. And this is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves with their first name? Yes, sir. Welcome. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Saskia. I'm an alcoholic. I'm visiting from New Jersey.
Welcome. Okay, and welcome everybody. We're glad you are here. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor, please raise your hands. Excellent. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? All right. Our sister group is a big book study meeting that meets every Thursday at 7:30 just up the street at Salem UCC Church, 186 East Court Street in Doylestown. Coffee is on at 6:15. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books and CDs to help those who can't afford them can put donations in the jar on the table marked Big Book and CD Donations, and all CDs are available free of charge. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown, PA, and our Facebook group. Subscribe and share. And you can find our speakers there, join our Facebook page to keep informed, and share upcoming events and meetings. And now with that, we have Matt to come up and read the Just for Today Prayer of Recovery. Let's give Matt a nice warm welcome.
Matt, alcoholic. All right, just for today. Just for today, I will be agreeable. I will look as well as I can. Dress becomingly, talk low. Act courteously. Criticize not one bit, not find fault with anything, and not try to improve or regulate anybody except myself. Welcome home. And next we have Gary with a warm welcome.
Hi, I'm Gary. I'm an alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA memberships. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allowed with any sector, domination, politics, organizations, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any cause. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help others alcoholics to achieve sobriety. With that being said, I would like to bring up Kara.
Good evening, y'all. My name's Kara. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. Welcome home, everyone. The AA 12 Steps of Recovery. Number 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Number 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Number 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Number 4, made a searching and fearless more inventory of ourselves. Number 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Number 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Number 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Number 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Number 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible except when to do so would injure them or others. Number 10, continued to take personal inventory when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Number 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And number 12, had a spiritual awakening. As a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Now I'd like to invite Nick to come back so he can introduce our speaker. Woohoo!
Okay, we have a 7th tradition which states every AA group ought to be fully self-supported, declining outside contributions. At this time, we like to pass the baskets and we have no dues or fees, but we do have expenses, and this group provides many services. Your donations cover food, rent, big books, CDs, events, and workshops, and we do have a Venmo. There's a QR code back there on the table, or come see me and you can scan our Venmo to make a donation that way if you don't have cash. Okay, please take a moment to please silence your cell phone and try to limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. Now to introduce our speaker, a good friend of the Conscious Contact speaker group. Tonight from the No Serenity Till Brooklyn group, the 4th and missing Beastie Boy, we have Devin C. from New York, from Brooklyn. Please give Devin a warm welcome.
I've actually had somebody think I was in the Beastie Boys once because of that. Good evening, everybody. My name is Devin. I am an alcoholic. You already got my home group is No Serenity Till Brooklyn. We do have 4 meetings a week. I will be there tomorrow morning. We have an 11 a.m. beginners meeting. I'm usually there Sunday morning and Monday night. So if you happen to come up to Brooklyn and be around for a weekend into Monday, if I'm in town, I'm usually there. I do have a sobriety date. It happens to be August 28th of 2011, and I'll talk about that day in a little bit. I just was told early on, if you don't know if you have a sobriety date or you don't know when it is, you might not have one. So I'm really glad I have one. I was also told the best sobriety date you can get is the one you already have. So if you're here and you got a sobriety date, that's the best thing you can ever have. But most importantly, I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And, I'm really grateful to be here. Thanks for allowing me to come out. It's a little bit of a drive from New York, and I got to pick up one of my really close friends in Jersey, and we got to spend a drive coming out here, and that was great, and we'll get a drive home. And hopefully get a chance to talk to another one of the guys I sponsor who's down in Florida on the way back, who's been going through a bunch of family stuff, and he's been able to show up. I'm just really grateful today, and I don't want to get hung up too much on the what it was like part, because sometimes I get lost in the early part of the steps, and I feel like most of the current experience I'm having is more with the later part of our program. So I'm going to try to do my best to get us into that, because I really have some stuff that I'd like to talk about that's been going on recently, which has been truly remarkable. But what is important is, as I said, I'm an alcoholic, and I didn't really know what alcoholism was for a little bit. I think I even was in AA for a while and didn't really understand alcoholism. And I was really grateful that I was probably 3 years sober when I finally sat with somebody who cracked open the doctor's opinion and more about alcoholism, and there is a solution, and pointed me to the descriptions that the literature gives us of what alcoholism is. And really simply, they explain that alcoholism mainly is going to manifest in a few ways. One, it's going to manifest once alcohol comes into my body, and I have this reaction where I need to drink more. But that's not really important if I just don't drink. So if I had the ability to just say, well, alcohol, that's been not doing so good, I'm going to put that down and move on, then I would have the ability to make that choice. So more importantly, as we start to look into our history with alcohol, we talk about the mental obsession and the fact that the real problem for an alcoholic is that the best that I can do as far as my own thinking, always put a drink back in my hand. And that's really the problem. But today when I look back at my experience, I want to talk about that first drink. And even before the first drink, I was born in Indiana. That's just where it was. But at 8 years old, the teachers pulled my family aside and they were like, you should get him looked at. I don't know, you ever had to get evaluated as a kid? I got evaluated at 8 years old. I just seemed to have something going on. They didn't really know what it was, but I couldn't sit still and just be like a kid in school and learn. I interrupted the teachers, I stood up, had to walk around, I interrupted students. I just had something going on. And they started medicating me at 8 years old. And, and I don't know if that was what began the narrative, but as far as I was concerned, I walked through life and there was all of you and there's me. And I hear this with pretty much every story of NAA. That for some reason I seem to, and hear this from all of you, but I seem to have this thing where it feels like there's a wall between me and all of you. And a lot of times you'll hear people say I felt separate from, not a part of. And that was true. And what happened the first time I took a drink was that went away. And so I started to go back and go, okay, so if alcoholism is really this issue where I have a mind that obsesses over taking a drink, well, why is that? Well, because when I found alcohol did something for me. It's something else I hear from everybody in AA that I really relate to, is not just alcohol does things to us. I mean, you could give anybody enough drinks and they're going to get drunk. They're not going to be a good driver necessarily. They're maybe not going to be able, they're going to pass out. They might make poor decisions. They can't speak clearly. But that's what alcohol does to everybody. But what alcohol did for me was it effectively seemed to tear down that barrier that was between me and you. And it allowed me to sit down on a couch at 13 years old and feel like I was enough. And feel like I belonged here. I was able to look at all of you, and my friends used to make fun of me, and I wouldn't throw anything back at them. And I would just get, I'd let them just say something and kind of push it off. And all of a sudden I heard myself making fun of them back. And then I could go and talk to her. And I started being able to do things when I was drinking that didn't seem to be possible for me sober. And so when I look back at, in our literature, Silkworth, in the doctor's opinion, writes this really eloquent sentence. He goes, men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. Duh. Anybody else like the effect? I mean, yeah. I liked it so much that I drank enough to be blacking out and having alcohol poisoning and all the stuff that comes, the dry heaves and all the crazy stuff that happens when you just can't stop drinking. I got all of that, but the real effect that I look back on was for the first time in my life, I felt okay. And I think really that's all I've ever been looking for. I just want to feel okay. It's not that I don't always have these visions of grandeur, I need the million, all the crazy stuff on the material world. It's I just want to be comfortable in my own skin, to be able to walk through this world, to not feel uncomfortable and awkward. And alcohol did that for me. And today I recognize that more as that alcohol treats the real problem. Alcoholism is a deeper thing. It's a sickness, as my friend Mickey would talk about, in my soul. Mickey always asks the question of where does it hurt? And it's it hurts in my heart. It hurts deep within. I don't want to tell you where I feel broken. And when I drink, I can let that all just kind of goes away. So it's not a big leap for me to watch that progression as a young teenager into those later teen years. And I started getting more access to alcohol, which meant I drank more and more. And early on, even at 16, I remember visiting my sister at family weekend in Iowa. And it was one of the first times where I was in a room with some other young, it was the freshmen or young kids in college, and they had a bunch of booze. And I don't know how much I drank in 10 minutes, but I drank enough to literally have alcohol poisoning. And, I watched my wife. It's one of the amazing things of being sober for a little bit of time now, is I've actually built a real relationship with another one of God's kids. And she's not an alcoholic, and she has the kind of thing where she will drink and she will forget she's drinking. Anyone ever forget they are drinking when you started drinking? And this is what I mean by that. She will pour herself a glass of wine, will drink from said glass of wine. An hour and a half later, I will go into the kitchen and there will be a half-drunk glass of wine on the counter. I will grab it, go into the other room, I will look at her and say, hey, did you want this wine? And she will literally, with complete disbelief, go, oh, the wine. Yeah, I'll take that. Like, it could have been orange juice. It could have been water. Like, it's the same reaction that she had. It's just, it's a beverage that she decided would be nice to have. That is not my relationship to alcohol. It has never been. The first time we drank, we grabbed a bottle of gin, we poured a bunch of shots, we drank until we felt it. What I felt was not only just that warm, flush feeling in the beginnings of being drunk, but I felt like a release from this feeling that I didn't know you could get relief from. You know, I kind of look back and it's like that's the first time I got to look in the mirror and realize that I didn't have to feel how I'd always felt. Because up until then, you've only felt, it's like, this is how I am, this is what life is. And all of a sudden, I get all of this undercurrent of uncomfortability to go away. Yeah, I'm going to do that as often as I can. So I'm an alcoholic, but I'm not a specialist, and maybe there's some non-specialists in here. What I mean by that is, you know, I did a lot of stuff. I definitely have a phenomenon of craving to alcohol. When I start, I don't know what's going to happen. I'll tell you, a couple weeks ago, I had a cup of coffee, and I work at a thing, and we have a break halfway through the show. And I'd had a coffee that was like apparently by one of the sanitizer pumps. Somebody must have gone in there and put some sanitizer on their hands, wiped it, and a little bit must have fallen right where the mouth opening is for the coffee. Now, I don't know, maybe this is normal. But after not having a drink in 13 and a half years, when I went and took the sip of coffee and I got this little tiny bit of like sanitizer alcohol in my mouth, my whole body started like tingling and buzzing in this really weird way. I don't think that's normal, y'all. Like, the littlest bit of alcohol today introduces into my body, and my body starts to turn on in a really funny way. I had that once, 4.5 years sober. I was in Amsterdam for some work, and this lady gave me some kombucha, which, fermented tea, but at that time I wasn't thinking about that. And I took one sip of it, and it hit my stomach, and from the bottom of my stomach to my fingers and my toes, it was like this warm, fuzzy feeling, like electric shock, just went all through me, and I realized, oh, that's alcohol, and I can't, Luckily, I was working a program, and we have a promise that says, hey, you'll react sanely and normally, and you'll recoil from alcohol as if from a hot flame, and that's what happened that day. So I'm here to at least attest that if you're actually living this program and you have an accidental, oh my God, I ate the chocolate at the dessert thing in the holidays and it had rum in it, like that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go and immediately go on a bender here. But I've had a few of those things where I got acquainted with what does it really look like when alcohol enters into my body. Something happens, and it's really strange. My bigger problem was that I just couldn't stop. And what that really started to look like was I had plenty of consequences as a result of the lifestyle I was living. I went, by the time I was 18, there was a lot of other stuff happening. My mom got a call from the police on Mother's Day that kind of blew up my spot about some stuff that was going on. I ended up in a rehab at 18. It's my only experience with treatment, but a couple of big things happened there. The most important thing that happened to me in that treatment center, and I heard you guys make an announcement about it here, and I think it's awesome. It's a part of service that I do for AA a bunch. There was members of Alcoholics Anonymous taking a meeting into that facility a couple nights a week. So at 18, I'm sitting in a locked facility. I can't leave, but there was AA members bringing Alcoholics Anonymous meetings into the facility. Now, that didn't get me sober in that moment. But I'll tell you, 6 years later, when I'm waking up every day wondering, is today the day I'm going to take my own life? Because alcohol's not working anymore. I can't imagine continuing living life as I'm living it because it's just a rolling series of blackouts and brownouts and alcohol poisoning, and it's just, my life is a mess. I'm unemployable. I was a freelancer, and I'm doing air quotes for the tape, a freelancer, but I found out you have to have a job to call yourself a freelancer. Nobody was calling me. I was just a bum. My parents were like financing my first year of living in New York City after going to college in Boston, and I was unemployable. I was just going to the bar every night, putting down whatever cash I had to my buddy who was the bartender, saying, that's for you, and he would just pour me a shot and a beer nonstop for the whole night until I was blacked out. And so when I'm waking up, though, I had this memory of y'all. And I'd gone to a bunch of AA meetings when I was 18, but I look back now and I didn't even qualify to be a member here. The third tradition is really simple. It says the only requirement for AA membership is the desire to stop drinking. And I don't know about y'all, but I didn't have a desire to stop drinking at 18. I went to AA meetings and I did what the counselors and my family told me I had to do because that seemed like the conditions that I had to comply with in order to go forward to my life, which is really all that I was concerned about. I found that I can comply with the conditions. You might find yourself locked up and having to do some time in some kind of a facility. I can comply with those conditions, but in the back of my mind, I'm doing that because I know that at some point I'm going to get out of this and I'm going to get back to my plan. And my plan was definitely not to become an AA member and get sober, especially not at 18. So I went there, I took one drink the first night. I was not under complete supervision, and effectively for the next 6 years I barely drew a sober breath. Our book talks about, well, Silkworth, after the men and women drink essentially because they like the effect, he talks about how our life becomes normal. The alcoholic life becomes normal. And I don't know about you, but if you're living your life, it starts to feel pretty normal. I'm waking up every day, it's just Groundhog Day. This is just what you do. It doesn't seem crazy to me to wake up and immediately start drinking. I thought everybody does this. If you're not doing this, you don't know how to do life. And, that was this, I wake up, buy a 40, go take a walk, that was breakfast, and then try to figure out how to live in the world and how to get out and function. And so I took a drink, I went on a spree. That spree lasted almost 6 years to the day. In the middle of all that, it was madness. I started selling a bunch of, there's this green plant that a lot of musicians wanted to use, and I found out that I, enjoyed that, and then I found out if I was just selling it, I would have complete access to it all the time, and I'd have a drawer full of cash. So I started doing that, had some home invasions, police, had some fun with that, had to figure out how to do it better, which I did, and for about 3 years, and I had no problem, moved a couple of pounds of pot a week out of this apartment in Boston, and had a drawer full of money, and just lived recklessly doing whatever I wanted to do. And again, rolling series of blackouts and brownouts. I ended up in New York. I don't really call it a geographic because it wasn't like I'm moving to New York to get sober, but in my mind I was like, okay, time to join, I'm leaving this college town, I'm going to got to get my life on track. First day I'm in New York, I'm intoxicated, and it just kept going. And so I started waking up, and the best thinking I could have was, if this is as good as life's going to get, I might as well just kill myself, because I don't really understand. And our literature talks about it. In A Vision for You, they call it the jumping off place. And I hope if you're in this room, and maybe you're wondering, maybe you're hurting and you're wondering, like, is AA for me? Like, I hope you get to the jumping off place. And I don't mean that in a mean way. From my experiences, the only thing that allowed me to get to a place where I could completely surrender and start to accept this program was when I realized that I was out of options. And the jumping off place for me was I could not imagine continuing to drink and live the life that I was living. But you have to understand that up until that point, sobriety is painful. Even if you've been here for a while, you might realize sobriety can be really painful if you've got alcoholism and you're not actually treating it. That could be 20 years sober, 50 years sober. Like, if I've got a spiritual illness that I'm not treating, I'm going to be feeling some kind of way. It doesn't matter that I'm not drinking, that I can still really feel disturbed here. But at that point, obviously, active alcoholism, sobriety is miserable. Sobriety is painful. The idea that sobriety is what I need, which is like what counselors and my family would maybe be suggesting, sounded like, you just want me to go and live this painful existence? This is terrible. I couldn't imagine that you could actually become comfortable in your own skin, and that I could actually maybe find what like that first drunk gave me without needing alcohol. And so I made it to the jumping off place. And what I didn't mention is there was one guy, and I think we all have, I call him like the guiding light. I think everybody hopefully has like that one or two people, or those couple of people that you saw that were the example. And Will, my buddy Will, who's out in Hawaii, he was born and raised out in Kauai, he was that person for me. And he was one of those happy sober people, which I've been here, was here, like 5.5 years ago. I'm here again tonight. There's happy sober people here. I don't know if you aren't happy and you're in the room. There's people that are actually here, happy and sober. And when I met somebody who was happy and sober, I hated the guy. Not like I was like angry with him, but I remember I looked at this guy the first time I ever met him, and I'm like, what game is he playing? Because the life that I lived was just all about what I'm going to get from you, or can you give me something? And so I imagine this guy coming in with this like larger than life happiness, that he was just really good at manipulating people to get what he wanted. That's kind of what I thought. I got to know this man, and I got to find out he was a genuinely loving person. And he really was that kind. And he really, he would make you, like, if you get to talk to this person, he'll look you in the eye. He would like it was like laser in on you, like an owl or something. And you'd realize that he was actually giving you his attention. And he was actually trying to be present with you. And one time in Boston, I called him because the word was that he used to party, and he didn't anymore. And I'd gotten to be friends with him. We were playing some music together and we were hanging out. And he was always just himself, happy, laughing a bunch, super kind, super loving, and never was intoxicated. So I called him one time, and I don't know what I said, but all I remember is it got quiet at some point when I was done talking. And on the other end of the phone call, he simply said this. He said, well, hey man, I go to AA and it works for me. And that was it. He didn't talk about 12 steps. He didn't talk about a book or a meeting or a plan of action. He just said, I go to AA, it works for me. But what he did for me to this day is he modeled one of the greatest demonstrations of our program. He lived what this is all about out in the world. He lived a life rooted in love and in gratitude and in spiritual principles. And he actually demonstrated that, not because he talked about it, but because that's actually how they talk about that the man that approaches us, that his deportment shouts that he's a man with a real answer. I mean, that's what Will did without any of the other stuff that we would talk about here. He wasn't talking about sponsorship and do this or do that. He just lived in front of me, happy and sober. A real demonstration of what can happen if you turn your will and your life over to God and you make it your mission to actually bear witness of God's power, God's love, and God's way of life. And so I had the treatment people, and I had Will, and now I'm at the jumping off place. And of my own, not because the court told me to, and even though I had a court date pending for some charges in another state, and I had all that stuff. It wasn't family or court, it was just, I'm either going to kill myself or maybe I'll get sober. Because it seemed like those were really the two options. And I kind of think in my head it was like, well, if I try to get sober and that fails, I'll just go kill myself. So at least I had the logic in the right order to not try to kill myself and then go get sober. But I had the wherewithal, and I looked up an AA meeting on my own. And it was in North Brooklyn in a town called, or a neighborhood called Greenpoint. And no offense, but I was 24 years old at that time, and I walked into a room and everybody in there was like 60 and up. And I looked around, and I'm trying to be like this hip musician living in Brooklyn, and all these grandparents from this neighborhood are there. And I was like, dude, you gotta be kidding me. Like, absolutely not. I don't belong here. And there was one guy who was maybe like 40, Steven, and he was like, you should stay. There's a men's group coming in after this. It's going to be different. And it was. I objectively, before they cleared out a half hour later, there was another meeting. So some of the people were already coming in when this meeting was being let out. And it was a lot of younger people. And I ended up staying for that second meeting. And if you're new and you come to an AA meeting and you make either the mistake of letting people know you're new, then, you'll get mobbed by all of us because we want to talk to you. It's like, come here, man. Like, I want you to come and hang out with us. We're going to the diner. We're going to, I got a bunch of people wanting to give me their phone number. I don't know what's going on, but oh, this is Joe. He's a good guy over there. So I got connected with people, and you guys invited me into the fellowship. And what I mean by that was you guys said things like, hey, man, take my number. Give me a call tomorrow. I'm going to go to this meeting on this night. If you want, we can get up together. We can go together. We'll get coffee. We could, have you thought about sponsorship? And they started saying and inviting me to be a part of this thing. But the problem is, I didn't want to have anything to do with any of you. I was like, I don't need friends. I got friends. Get away from me. But what happened, that was like early June of 2011. As I said, my sobriety date is August 28th of 2011. And in those almost 3 months, I got really acquainted with what it means to be powerless over alcohol. For almost every single day in that period, I woke up and I said, I need to be sober. And I went to a meeting, if not multiple meetings every single day. And my nickname, which I didn't know I got, but my nickname was 2-Day Devin. Because what I found out is it's absolutely impossible for me to just stop drinking. And I came to meetings and I was surrounded by all of you people, and I would say the prayer at the end and I would listen to you. And the reality is I'm powerless over alcohol. I have alcoholism, and I would find myself drinking. Our book talks about the strange mental blank spots, or the peculiar mental twists that precede the first drink. And what that looked like for me is I would come and hang out with y'all, feel a little bit better. You go to a meeting, you're like, I feel a little better. I kind of equate it to like if you have an old generation phone and you charge it all night, it says 100%. You make one phone call for like 6 minutes and it's like 8%. I'm like, what happened? That's kind of I come to the meeting and you guys would try to give me as much God and as much power as you could. And then I go out in the world and I'm like on some old operating system. I've got faulty machinery here. And within very short order, I'm like, battery's dead. I have no spiritual juice on my own. And so I would come to the meetings and try to get the juice from the people that were here. But it wasn't going to sustain me out in the world. And I was still playing music at the time. And a lot of times when you're playing like a bar, you go to the bar and they say, here's these drink tickets. They don't pay you, they just give you drinks. And I would have these moments where I was just in an AA meeting and now I'm at a bar and I'm already halfway through a drink before my mind would go, oh, you weren't going to drink today. And I had those mental blank spots. I literally had those I don't remember going and ordering a drink. I don't remember starting drinking. I'm just coming to with oh, I'm drinking. And that's where I started to really understand, I'm screwed. Because for the first time in my life, I actually have a desire to get sober. I see that if I don't do this, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna let go of everything that I have ever cared about in my life. I'm gonna surrender all of it. My biggest fear was I'd be the guy in the city pushing the shopping cart around on the trains, and I really saw, I see the path to becoming that. And I started to feel that fire, that desperation of if this doesn't change, this is game over. And so what happened on August 28th of 2011 is not that I quit drinking, but what miraculously happened that day was I came to a meeting again, and I felt broken, but in a different way. This is kind of it was almost like if you have those old TVs with no antenna, you turn the TV on, it's just the static. That's what it was like in my brain. I woke up on a Monday morning and it just felt like static was going on. I didn't have any real clear thoughts. And I stared at the floor for the entirety of this meeting. At the very end, they said, we have 5 minutes left. Does anybody feel like if they don't get a chance to share, they're going to drink, do some drugs, hurt themselves, hurt somebody else? We want to leave a moment for you to be able to share and take a burning desire. And the experience that I had was just my hand went up. I saw the guy calling me, and almost as if I was listening to one of you share, I heard myself say, I'm screwed and I don't know what to do. I was a little more colorful, but you can figure it out. But I'm effed and I don't know what to do. If I'm not surrounded by you people or at another one of these meetings, I'm going to be drunk and high later. It's going to happen. It's been happening every single night. And when they said whatever they say to close the meeting, I don't remember any of that. And we stood up to pray, the serenity prayer at that meeting. And I just remember it was like I heard the prayer and I felt like I was a part of the prayer. And I got this little chill going down my spine feeling. And for me, the message that I feel like I got that day was, this is for you. That whatever's going on right here, right now, in this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous, you are in the right place where you're supposed to be. This is for you. And AA's been for me ever since. I haven't even really considered seriously taking a drink ever since that moment. It didn't feel like that, maybe counting days in those first couple of months, but I look back and I'm like, that obsession that I had that kept me drinking all those years, that was just taken away. And I really think it's because if you look at page 30, it says when we concede to our innermost selves that we're alcoholic, that's the first step. And that's actually what I think happened that day. At 18 in treatment, they told me, you have a problem with alcohol, you have a problem with all these drugs, you're this. And they labeled me. And I said, fine, I'm that. But that was the day that I understood within my heart that this is real for me. I'm one of those people that's powerless over alcohol. My mind can't leave it alone. When it gets in me, there's no stopping it. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm one of those people. Is your life unmanageable? Well, yeah, I'm 24 years old. I have no way of making a living. I'm suicidal. I'm super gluing a plastic front tooth into my face from a whole bunch of other, circumstances gone awry. And I'm incapable of showing up in this world in any appreciable way. And all I can think about is me. Our second step talks about we came to believe in a power greater than ourselves that could restore us to sanity. Now, when I said what I said if I'm not surrounded by you people or at another one of these meetings, I'm going to be drunk and high later. And so I look back at that and I said, so what I actually said was, if I believe that if I'm surrounded by y'all, I might be able to stay sober. So somewhere in the process of me coming to a bunch of meetings and not being able to stay sober, I had started to at least believe that you guys weren't lying to me. And this might sound crazy, but I used to come to meetings in those early days and think that you all gathered just to screw with me. I mean, anyone else that self-centered? That like, I would get to the meeting, I'm like, they're here again just to lie to me. You know, and you hear enough stories and you see people, and really it was the other people that were counting days that were super raw. It was the guy with 13 years like me tonight, I was like, whatever, dude, that's not true. You drank somewhere along the line. You know, I couldn't, it was unfathomable. But like seeing somebody who had 12 days and a week later had 19 days, I was like, man, I was just in a blackout for 4 days. How did that guy stay sober? He stayed sober the week though, that's really impressive. You know, like that seemed more manageable or attainable perhaps than somebody with multiple years of sobriety. But I would offer anybody, if you've been coming to meetings and can't stay sober, if you happen to be drunk and you're here, like, or you're listening to this and you're drunk, like, if you're being brought back to AA and you, for some reason, you still show up at a meeting or you still listen to this talk or you put those things on, is it possible that you actually have come to believe on some level that Alcoholics Anonymous might have something on the ball with and a way to help you? Otherwise, why are you even here? Maybe it's that simple, that I just need to understand that I do believe there is some help for me out there, but I'm not AA. You know, no one of us is AA, but when we come together, we get to find this magic when we identify with each other, when we can share our experience with each other. So I'd had a second step experience before, maybe even I got sober, or got struck sober, but I'd come to believe at least that AA worked for y'all. And I didn't know if it was going to work for me, but I was willing to give it a shot. And then when I got the little tingle down my spine feeling, I mean, that was the most bare bones decision to turn my will and my life over, at least to y'all, which was like, all right, this whatever you need me to do, I'll do it. Now, I've gotten to go back, and there's a lot more for me to talk about with the third step, which I'll try to get to when I get back to the later half of this stuff. But so, you know, my first sponsor, I asked one of the guys I met at that first meeting, would he help me? You know, we read the 12 and 12 together. I have no idea what happened. I know that I became really enamored with the fellowship, and I really believe that that surrender experience and the fact that there was like bazillion meetings all over the place in New York. I lived in the fellowship. I had this really amazing surrender experience, and that carried me to a point where I became interested. Well, what happened was I found speaker tapes. And the fact that people were making it their priority to go out and tape talks at conferences. I mean, the reality is if you're in AA, we have literally the most insane collection of people that gather together and we tell our stories. And there's just some of the most insane stories of humanity amongst sober members of Alcoholics Anonymous. And you can go back and listen to all these people that have had these incredible transformations take place in their lives. And so I heard some speaker tapes, and I started falling into this rabbit hole. And what I found was that most of what people were talking about in those recordings was not what I was hearing in the meetings around where I was living, or at least the meetings I had gone to. And I said, these people are like speaking a whole different language, and they're talking about this big book, and they all seem to be like having a thing. And so I sought somebody out to go through the big book and do a round of steps, around 3 years of sobriety. And that's not to say that I hadn't done, I mean, I had made amends to my family, I had made a bunch of amends to a bunch of people, I had done everything that I thought, or that was asked of me up until that point. But it was really like 3 years, I sat down, I had a guy who was about Ron was maybe 28 years sober at that time. He was like a union guy who left school at 14, and he just said, we're going to do the steps, you can go read the book later. My job is to make sure that every one of these steps you're crystal clear about what we do, because your job at the end of this is to go and carry this to somebody else. That's what AA is. It's one drunk helping another. We don't do the steps so our lives get better. We do the steps so we can become useful to God, and we can go and share that with other people, which was not what I was hearing. You know, I was hearing, I'm going to go make those amends so I can get those promises. You know, I'm going to do this thing so I don't drink again. And when he started to put that this whole thing was on a level of service, that like, yes, we need to do the steps because I need to treat my alcoholism so I don't drink, but my purpose here is to fit myself to be of maximum service to the God and the people about me. And he also pointed out that in AA it says we share our experience, strength, and hope, not our opinion, strength, and hope. So he goes, so you better go out and do this stuff so you have some experience, so at every one of these steps you can actually share what you did and your journey with that, because that's how we can be of maximum helpfulness. At least that's how I think I can be the most helpful to another alcoholic. I can show you how I developed a relationship with God by working these 12 steps and trying to apply them in my life a day at a time. And I believe for anybody who's willing to give an honest go at this program, that that's the gift that we get to offer. It's a way for you to get hooked up with the God of your understanding. I'm not going to pick up the phone someday You're going to call me, Saskia here knows, call me, I'm busy. I'm not always available. But if you have an active relationship with a God that lives in your heart, that's 24/7. Is that not the greatest gift that I could offer you? An access to a real solution that's alive in your life and in your heart. So that when I, as a human being, am not able to pick up the phone, you have a solution. It's get quiet. Go to your Creator. Ask for some intuitive thought. But so the main thing that you find out, if you get to these first 3 steps, okay, I'm alcoholic, can't manage my own life, check. Miserable when I'm sober, can't not drink. Once I start drinking, no off switch, done. Okay, I believe. I never grew up with religion, so the God thing was not, I wasn't like, ooh, yay, let's go. But I'm dying, right? So I'm willing to try. I believe that maybe if I sought power, I might find it. I'm willing to make a decision. And what our literature ultimately says, when we sincerely took such a position, and the position that we're asked to take in the 3rd step is that we can't play God in our lives. They say most good ideas are simple. And the idea that was the most simple was clearly, first of all, we had to quit playing God. It doesn't work for us. So am I willing to wake up today and try to not play God, and not manipulate, not control, and to see if I can get into the idea where I'm like, hey God, it would be a real privilege if I could serve you today. Now that's not, again, 27, 25, I'm not excited about, ooh, let's wake up and serve God. I'll tell you, at 38, my prayers look a lot like that. My prayers today are all about gratitude and all about, it's like, God, I love you. I remember talking to my sponsor, I said, Mike, what does prayer look like for you today? He goes, it's really simple. God, I love you. I love that. And that's effectively where it's gotten to, is that all of my prayer life has moved into, I'm trying to ask to be useful. And I'm asking for the privilege to go out and do whatever it is that God needs me to do, understanding that I might not like it. But what we became abundantly clear, and we meaning the early AAs, and what became abundantly clear to me, is that there is something standing between me and God in my heart. And that is what our 4th and 5th step are all about in the beginning. I am not able to access this power when I'm living a life full of deep-seated resentment, a ton of fear, and I'm walking around treating God's kids with a callous disregard for their well-being. Now that's exactly what we look at inventory. We have 3 real big parts that we look at. Some people call the 4th part the secrets part. They say we tell someone else our whole life story. If there's something that you're sitting going, I'm never telling them that one, like go tell your sponsor that one. Do it tonight. Like, hey, there's this thing I never told anybody. I just got to tell somebody. Like, do that. But really what our literature talks about, to do a searching and fearless moral inventory, is I have to look at my resentments and I have to unpack them in a different way. They basically tell us, and this is my experience, that how I've looked at the world is, I can't believe you would do this to me. This is how it makes me feel. Look at how wrong they are. Done. And if you look at the diagram in our literature on page 65, that's what they show you. I'm resentful at so-and-so. This is what they did. This is how I see it affected me. And they tell us, they go, this is as far as most of us ever got. That's fun, right? I like that. He sucks. Here's why he sucks. I'm right, And they say, well, if you do that, you're just going to stay angry. And guess what? Resentment seems to be the number one thing that's going to separate me from God. So maybe it's important that I figure out how to unpack those things and how to let them go. And what they suggest to us, just like is introduced when we get to a 3rd step in the literature, is that your real problem here is not the alcohol, it's your selfishness and your self-centeredness. When we're looking at resentment, that's what they point us towards. They go, where are you selfish? Where are you self-seeking? What are you really afraid of? And where's the dishonesty in this whole scenario that you've laid out where they've wronged you? And I will tell you that in a general way, I've written a bunch of inventory. I don't have any scars from doing it. And every single time I write it, I see the same stuff showing up there. And so what it normally looks like is the name is different. What they did is different. I feel less than or insignificant in my self-esteem, or I feel bigger than and better than because they're idiots. I start walking into the world causing friction with all my other relationships. I don't really have a relationship with this person because I hate them. Now I'm going home to my wife and I'm not really being available as a partner at home. I'm kind of causing some chaos at home because I've got resentment at my boss or whoever it is. My money might be affected because now I'm showing up at my job acting like a crazy person. They might fire me, or it's like, okay, so this is really impacting all of my life. My ambitions, I just want to get what I want to get and have an easy life. I want you to listen to me and trust me and respect me. Well, you start looking at, well, what am I really seeking? Oh, I'm seeking for your trust, your approval. I need you to be as different than you are. I need you to, I've got all these demands that I put on everybody else to make me feel better. I'm only thinking about me. I've got some self-pity. I'm the victim here. They're wrong. And that's usually predicated on the idea that I'm right all the time, with my self-righteousness, another outgrowth of my pride, my indignation, my arrogance, all that stuff's all at play. I keep seeing this stuff. There's always some fear. I'm going to look bad. I'm going to die. I'm alone. I'm unlovable, whatever. Like, there's always something underneath this that is driving why I'm actually angry. And a lot of times the dishonesty is like, well, really, I've just been trying to manage and control this person. And I've got I've got like a really ridiculous perspective of where I exist in this relationship. Like, I'll get angry at I had a job in COVID, and I had a manager, and one of my things where I'm seeking is to be treated as an equal. And I had to go to the dishonesty and go, well, I'm not an equal, he's my boss. Oh, nice, simple stuff. But again, so I go through this stuff and I realize, like, it's not really the world that's causing my internal discomfort, it's my reaction to the world that does that. And the more times I write these resentments out, the more tired I am of me. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the angry, prideful, arrogant, indignant, self-centered, self-seeking prick. I just don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to drive like an insane person. I don't want to be yelling at people. I don't want to be mentally yelling at people. Like, I just don't want that. But I'm not going to ask God to remove these things unless I'm sick of me. And so in the beginning, when you've got like 50 people or 20 people, hopefully you write all this stuff out and you can see those patterns. And then the question that was asked to me is, hey, is that objectionable to you? Are those the qualities you seek in a friendship or in a partnership with another person? No. I'm looking for the kind people, the loving people. I'm looking for all these people that are bringing spiritual principles to the table because I want to steal from them. Like, why don't you try to ask God to maybe move you from being this person to maybe live a different way of life? The fear stuff's great. It says we listed our fears, we asked ourselves why we had them. I know a bunch of people have a bunch of other ways to write fear. I just write it like that. 2 columns. Fear, why? Guess what? If I've got a fear, there's a reason. I usually know it. When I look at the reason, then I can go, well, why am I really afraid of that? And I'll find some funny things in there. And a lot of times it's really petty. A good one was one of the last times I did some stuff, I'd written a fear of, a fear of cheating on my wife or something. I was like, I'd fracture our marriage. Wow, well, we could get a divorce. And I said, why am I afraid of getting a divorce? You know what I wrote, guys, at 11 years of sobriety? I had to drop the pencil and just put my head in my hands. I wrote, I'll look bad in AA. It's not about I'm going to hurt this amazing lady who's a big part of my life, this incredible human. It's that I'm going to look bad. And when I dig under these fears, I really see that they're all about me. It's all self-centeredness. And the book says we have to smash that. They say that's a simple program, simple, not easy. The price that has to be paid here is destruction of self-centeredness. I haven't found a better tool than writing out my resentments, my fear, and then going to the conduct of my intimate relationships. And again, it's very similar. Where was I selfish, dishonest, inconsiderate? Who got hurt? Was I unjustifiably arousing jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness? We start going through this stuff, and you're like, okay, there's a lot of room for me to grow here. I found that when I sat down with somebody and shared it as it was told to me to write out of the big book, we did 5, 6, and 7, and we had an 8-step list of harms at the end of that conversation. And I had a legitimate burning bush kind of moment. I was walking to meetings with this character defects list that we had compiled, and I was like, guys, I had no idea. And people were looking at me in my meetings going, this guy's nuts. But it was like it was like a literal acid trip. For the first time in my life, I understood how I showed up in the world that caused me to be disturbed. And it had nothing to do with y'all. The world has not really changed, but what has happened as a result of this is I started getting into a 6 and 7 practice where I started looking at this stuff and saying, I don't want to live like that. And thank God it's not about, let's go work on our defects. But the book really clearly says we have to ask God to remove them. And over it says, if I could remove my self-centeredness, then I think I would have done that. It says it multiple times, if a mere code of morals or a better philosophy of life was sufficient, then I would have recovered long ago. But even if I have a good idea of how I want to live and a good set of morals, which I do, I have a loving family that tried to instill a wonderful set of values in me, I don't have the power to bring those into fruition. And so 6 and 7 for me, the longer I'm here, is really, I think, the work. And I think the sixth step might be maybe the most workhorse step you get after you can finish all your amends. Because every day, am I willing to wake up and take a look at my defects of character? Am I entirely willing to have all of those removed every single day? The answer is no. Some days I want to be prideful. Some days I like being arrogant. I love being smugly superior in the corner to other people. You ever do that one? Just look at somebody, oh, that poor SOP. God, I'm so glad I'm not like that. We can go crazy with this stuff. And I think sometimes I want to hold on to those things. And so the longer I'm here, it's like I wake up every morning. Part of my 11th step practice is I consider not just what I have to do for the day. I say we consider our plans for the day. There's a great Native American guy named Don Coyes who's an AA out in Colorado Springs. And I got to hear him share one time, and he said, it was suggested of him one time that your plans for the day might not just be the to-do list, but also the to-be list. Do you ever plan what kind of a person you want to be in this world? What kind of principles do you really want to live by? If we're going to go out and actually live a spiritually principled life, have I ever sat down and considered what principles I'd actually like to see in how I treat people? And so every morning now, I pretty much have that as part. I write what I need to do, and then I'm also doing that. And I see that as like a direct practice with 6 and 7 as well as my 10th and 11th step. Because how am I supposed to watch for these things as I'm living in the world if I don't know what they are, number one? So if I haven't written an inventory and I haven't shared that and I haven't had this, aha moment of this is where I'm showing up, that's actually causing me to be at odds with all of you, then I'm not really going to be that good at watching for it in the day. I'm going to go through life and I'm still going to be just as, that wall of separation will still be there. So the prayer on 7 is really amazing. My sponsor talks about that the prayer in 7 and 3 are very similar. But 7 is about total surrender. It says, my Creator, I'm now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character that stands in the way of my usefulness to you and to my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out here, or I go out from here to do thy bidding. Amen. Now it says, have all of me good and bad. One of the things that was suggested of me around this was, have you ever considered what you think is good in your life? Is it possible that if you're not willing to have the things that you've deemed are good in your life removed, if they stand between you and the usefulness that you could have to your God, that maybe your ego is going to start manifesting in those places? It's not fun. Well, if this isn't the marriage you need me to be in, if this career that I think is great is not where you need me to be, if living in Brooklyn, New York, I need to be somewhere else, if this car, what are all the things I think are good? Am I willing to wake up every day and say, God, if you need to take these things because these are actually keeping me from where I am right here and where you need me to go, I'm willing for you to take that. I've been doing that for years, and I will tell you it's very freeing when those things aren't removed. Because the things that are still here, when I've truly been willing to let God move me to wherever I need to be, have given me the ability to relax into them and say, I guess this is the relationship I'm supposed to be in. Right now, this does seem to be the career that I'm supposed to be doing. Doors keep being open. This relationship is flourishing. You seem to be providing all that I need, and I'm here. So maybe I am getting that promise of getting all that I need. 8 and 9, I think, is truly remarkable. I'm going to share some of my experience of a week ago, but I want to offer this. The book introduces steps 8 and 9 together. And at the end, they give us these promises that most people would call the 9th step promises, but I would call them the 8th and 9th step promises. And I would offer to you that when I became entirely willing to set right any of the wrongs that I did in this world, I got set free. Is it possible that they might be saying, you might be amazed when you become willing to do this, that all these things could start happening in your life? The actual process of making amends can take time. And the process of healing that I think the amends begins can definitely take time. One story about that. I made amends to my parents. I was 2 years sober officially, sat down with them. We had a bunch of tears, tried to figure out what we could do. They said, we just want our son back. We want you to be happy. It was a really beautiful thing. I'm 8 years sober. I'm talking to my mom on a phone call, and she goes, you were probably 5 years sober when the landline rang at 10 o'clock at night. And it was the first time that the house phone rang really late that I didn't get that sinking pit in my stomach feeling that something was wrong with you. And we had to stop and talk about that. Now, I had made amends years ago, and we're all good, and relationship's great, but she said that it's somewhere between the day I got sober, us having that conversation at 2 years, and me being about 5 years sober, she actually had healing take place in her heart, where she was no longer thinking, the top of her head was, this is the police, this is some kind of, hospital, or something's wrong with my kid. So she was allowed me to understand that, well, I can go to you and make this approach and say, hey, I've harmed you, I was wrong, I'm here to figure out what I can do to make this right. Do you need to let me know how I've impacted you and how, tell me anything? That actually is the beginning of a healing process. If I don't continue to actually show up, and if for the record, amend is not apologize. Amend is to change. To amend our behavior would mean that if I'm going to people and saying, hey, I stole from you, and then I continue to steal from them, I would argue, as sponsor hat on, I would argue we haven't really made the amends. And I got a buddy right now, he's like, he's been at the same job for a bunch of years and had some inventory. He was like, we gotta talk about these amends. And I said, let me ask you, you've gone to them and made amends to your employer a bunch, right? He's like, oh, yeah. And I said, how much have you changed? He goes, oh, not at all. And I was like, so maybe let's not focus on going to them, but let's go to 6 and 7 and let's see if you can actually invite God to start changing you so you can actually show up differently. I think that's so important. If I don't have the conversation, direct is clear. Direct amends means to the person I harmed. I'm somebody that believes if you got arrested and did for a criminal offense, for stealing or larceny or something, but you've never gone to the place that you stole from, you still haven't made that amends. I don't care that you did the 5 years. Direct amends is I harmed those people, I need to go talk to them. And as I said, my experience was when I became willing to set these things right, I think I did get set free. And I know a bunch of people that's been their experience. And there's a lady that said, screw off, don't ever talk to me ever again. You've made it clear, I don't want you anywhere near my life. You can't, you just stay away. We haven't spoken in 10 years. Somewhere along the line, about 8 years ago, I was like, I gotta make this amends to her. And I, talked to my sponsor at the time, and Bart was like, she already told you how you can make her life better is you stay away. And so I've stayed away. My birthday, belly button birthday, was last Sunday, and she texted me, happy birthday. I walked into a room and I saw her name on my phone, and I sat down and had about 15 minutes of quiet. And on Wednesday, we have an opportunity to sit down, and I'm going to be able to hopefully make an approach to make an amends to this lady. Sometimes people are not ready for us to show up in their lives. I'm a big believer that the amends process is between you, the other person, and God. And I've been praying for a long time, God, if there's a way for me to be able to make this right, I am willing to go do that, but you're going to have to make that happen because I cannot do this. And so she said that, I sat quietly, and I responded saying thank you, and then I said something to the effect of, I texted back like, I've wanted to reach out to you for years to see if we could have a conversation about how about the past and my conduct there. But I do remember that you, in no uncertain terms, told me to never contact you, so I've tried my best to honor that. And she thanked me for that. She said, I really appreciate that you didn't talk to me. And she's willing to meet me now. So I think that the amends process is one of those things where my job is to sit with a sponsor and to look at all the harm that I've done, and my job is to become willing. And then if there's people that I can go see and we can clearly say this doesn't cause harm, you're not them, you're not others, go do that, then we start knocking all this stuff off. I can make approaches to people. Some people don't want to hear from me. If they will hear from me later, fine. But as I sit here tonight, there's a kid I bullied in middle school. There's this lady that I'm going to talk to on Wednesday, and there's one other lady that I just can't find from the college years. But as far as I can tell, anybody that I really am aware of that I caused harm to, I've reached out to. I've tried to pay all the money back. Most people didn't even want my money. But I've been able to have those conversations. And to me, that whole journey is about allowing them the opportunity to get free of me. Allow them to heal from the wounds that I inflicted on them. Which again, coming here, I don't want to get sober. This is not what I'm thinking needs to happen. But it's been a beautiful journey. And today I can look the world in the eye. I can walk around and I can be here and be present and be comfortable in my own skin. And I have that feeling that I got that first time I took a drink. But it's not because I'm drinking. It's to me, this is like, hey, when you actually wake up and you can feel this power flowing in and through you, it will give you everything you've ever been looking for. And I think the biggest gift of it really has been, if you're willing to get engaged in this process, 10 and 11 falls into place. Like, are you willing to wake up every day and get connected with your higher power, the God of your understanding, and ask first, use some of these prayers, ask to go out and be useful. Are you willing, as you go through the day, to watch for these patterns of your own behavior, the character defects, the stuff that shows up that wants me to point the finger at everybody else why you're the problem and separate me from you? If I'm willing to watch for those things. Recently, I've been writing a note in my phone. As soon as I notice my mind going, I pull a note out and I just start writing it down. And then at the end of the night, I can look back at what I wrote for the day, and I can start reviewing my day and go, how did I really do? I woke up with all these visions of grandeur of being, Buddha or whatever. How did I really live? If my life was on CCTV and one of you random people were like, let's go check in on that AA speaker and see how he's really living. Would I be embarrassed about how I'm living when no one's looking? That's a great, my sponsor and I talk about that. Like, what am I doing when no one's looking? If I don't keep myself accountable to this stuff, nobody else can. And as I said, when I got up with my second sponsor, the guy that really took me through the steps, I said, the whole purpose of this is so we can go help others. And as I said, I think earlier, what I think I can do that's of the most help to anybody is I can show you how I developed a relationship with the God of my understanding. And I believe that if you follow that process that I was just talking about, from the first step through having a step 10 and 11 practice on a daily basis, that not only will you have had a spiritual awakening as a result of doing that, but you will be as excited as I am to go out and look somebody in the eye and say, you never have to live like that again. And as a result of me being, really having this like, oh my God moment, something is happening, I've had a whole privilege to watch other people show up in my life, and I've gotten to sit with them, and I've gotten to watch their lives change. And to me, I think that's really the final piece of the whole deal. The book says this is an experience that must not be missed. Some people say you got to give it away to keep it. My friends say you got to give it away to get it. Like, if you really want to see if AA works, get through these steps, but go sponsor people. Go to a prison. Go to hospitals and institutions. Go out there and really do AA. Do it for real. And sit with somebody and watch them have the courage to take these actions that you might not have thought were going to work. But then you're sitting there going, hey, my life's a little different, so maybe. Watch them do the same stuff and watch their life change, and I guarantee you will start to see what is so incredible about this program. I've gotten to watch a guy go, he was here illegally, basically homeless, living here illegally. He's a naturalized U.S. citizen today. I've gotten to see people that hadn't talked to their families in years send me photos of them like hugging their mom on her birthday. I hadn't talked to her in 4 or 5 years. Now that guy's got an apartment, he's got a kid, he's married. It's like we get to watch people come in and have a real shot at having a life. And that's not because we're special, that's because I believe if you found yourself in AA, that's my job. My job is to be a demonstration of what God can do. Am I willing to show up today and be a demonstration of God's power, God's love, and God's way of life? And it's been the greatest gift of my life to stumble in here, hate all of you, not want to do it, and then find that God didn't care where I started from. And instead, the life that I get to live today is totally mind-blowing. I gotta shut it down, but what I'll tell you is today, I am married. I have a relationship with this lady. We've been together 11 plus years, which is crazy. I say dumb things, but we've never had like an argument where we're yelling at each other in 11 something years, and we've been living together for a decade of that. I just got to go down and be with her brother who just got married. We got to be there he was there when we got married. We got to be there for his wedding. I have a relationship with my parents. Today I get to work as a musician. I've been able to travel all over the world. I'm covering full-time at a show that I'm on stage, and there's like 1,400 people every single day, 8 shows a week, and I'm sitting there on stage looking at this going, what? Like, what? And it's like I was there this afternoon. I played a matinee this afternoon, drove out here. 1,400 people. I'm sitting there, and I have all these dark memories, and then I have all this stuff, and I'm just sitting there doing my thing, looking at all these people smiling and going like, this is totally better than anything I could have ever considered for myself. And that's the promise. So we realize when we put our lives in God's hands that what was able to happen to us is far greater than anything we could have ever done. And to me, that's the writing that I read in the beginning, and I said, that's nice. But if you hang around long enough and you do this, you will find that those things that seem flowery and like, oh, he's just doing a little flourish of literary stuff, actually become true. So that book of ours is the book of my experience, and it's the book of so many other people's experience. And I'm just really grateful that AA was here, that I got born in a generation that this was somewhat figured out, that there was people that were already doing their job in AA, putting meetings together, willing to give me their time and share with me what had happened to them so that I could turn around and hopefully help share it with y'all. Thank you so much for my life.
Okay, incredible stuff. Again, my name's Brian. I'm an alcoholic. The group would like to thank Devin first and foremost for coming out here, making the trip tonight to share an incredible message and hope and recovery to our group here. As was mentioned before the meeting, we have food and fellowship every week here at 8 o'clock. Feel free to show up early, enjoy the fellowship, the coffee, the refreshments we put out. If you want to get involved with service with this group, we appreciate it. We could always use help with service after the meeting, putting chairs away, but most importantly, if you're out there and you're new or you're struggling, there'll be a whole group of us breaking down the meeting. We'd love to talk with you after the meeting. It is customary for us to thank our speakers as they come here on their own time and expense. We usually form a line in the front here, and we do thank our speakers personally. I'd like to thank everybody for helping out with the meeting tonight, our greeters, our readers, Ms. Kay for taking care of the kitchen there, and let's thank our speaker, Devin, one more time. And if you do care to join us, we have a beautiful way of closing. We are going to circle up, and we will close with our Lord's Prayer. Make it happen, Anthony. All right, and if you do care to join us, we will close down the meeting, as always, with a brief moment of silence for the still sick and suffering alcoholic inside and outside of these rooms, followed by our Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be